Welcome to Superior Stream episode 16 with your host here, Mayo, and my new co-host here, Mr. Bodok. How are you doing tonight, Mr. Bodok?
Doing well. How are you?
I'm alright. Well, I've finally got all of my buttons and knobs twisted to the right orientation, so hopefully this should come through nice and clearly. If not, I'll fix it up in the post-production. But let me go ahead and get to our first topic of the night. I don't like to waste time dicking around. You may not have this on your docket since I just now put it on here, which is my lack of content. I've been wanting to push out more stuff, but I've just not been doing it. And on my previous show, I was like, I need to do more stuff, and I'm still at that same kind of crossroads where I have like I want to do creative stuff, but I'm just not following through with it. So I think I need to either do some recreational drugs or something to kind of get my ingenuity going. I think. I don't know. How are your projects going? Or do you have any projects you're currently working on?
Oh, I've got various projects in different states of completion. And currently working on little home monitoring setup. So
Home
set
monitoring
up a
setup. Now, is this
yeah.
for entertainment purposes or security purposes or?
Well, it's more security slash just a kind of a hobby or something to tinker with. I usually try and do something new or interesting every once in a while to kind of keep things rolling.
Yeah, you'd
Keep
mentioned
the
bear hunting, or you were supposed to go to a bear hunting seminar, and that kind of caught my interest. I didn't know you were into hunting at all.
Yeah, yeah. I've always not really been like a huge hunter, but I do go hunting recreationally, and I mean not for sport, but a lot of the meat that I eat has been killed by me or someone I know.
Oh yeah, don't even get me started. I love me some deer back strip, or I'm not sure these are where you are, but alligator meat is actually really good. It's high in protein. Uh, I've eaten a lot of exotic foods, but mostly when I when I was a baby, my dad would just go out and kill stuff. And when you're a baby, you don't have any kind of reservation. Just put whatever is in your mouth. So I ate crocodile, snakes, um, any manner of varmint that would be edible. We've eaten probably. Um, I kind of want to eat crocodile again someday because I reckon it's pretty tasty. Although I'm sure it's not as easy to come by meat wise.
I couldn't say. I've never tried alligator or any variety of animal of that sort, but I can attest that personally, I prefer a moose steak over a beef steak any day.
Moose steak. Oh yeah. Well, you have those giant. I don't know. They're at least like 2 meters tall if you count their antlers. Those giant mooses up in Alaska.
Yeah, they're pretty good size. I mean, they're usually taller than me.
Yeah, I heard if they go to charge you, they'll pretty much they'll take you down. They're some vicious animals if you get on their bad side.
Yeah, you definitely don't want to test your fate. I mean, you've got some crazy people around here that'll, sometimes try and walk up and pet them, but it's never advisable.
Yeah, but enough on that, I guess. Do you have any other projects other than the home security?
I mean, I'm always doing something, tinkering with something. The home security thing was kind of a new gig, so I'm in the process of setting up a Linux program called ZoneMinder. It's open source, used
Mm-hmm.
for monitoring various different cameras. A lot of your MVRs are tied to specific brands of cameras or um, specific types, be it IP cams or direct wired, what have you. But this is kind of a um, open source broad, uh, basically a sledgehammer to something, so you don't have to be tied down to something so specific.
Yeah, I can see that. But I'll veer us back on topic since we're kind of straying off into the grass. Xbone exclusives, or well, this one is not apparently so exclusive anymore. Are you familiar with Quantum Break for the? Well, originally it was going to be for the Xbox One, but now it's coming out for the PC.
Uh, no, I can't say that I am really.
Oh,
Um,
I'm kind of in your same boat. I didn't even know about this game. I don't really pay that much attention to console news. I'll pull up a link here and post it on the screen. I'll send it to your Steam as well if you want to look at it while I'm going over it. But I'll have this up on the screen for our viewers, if we have any viewers at the moment. And so we can't get this up and going here. But basically, while I'm getting this put together, it was originally supposed to be an Xbox One exclusive, and that's how it was marketed. So you've had people putting down pre-orders for this in the game Quantum Break. Then, at some point, it was also announced as being released for PC. So you have a whole lot of Xbone fanboys who are like, well, what the hell am I paying, for this pre-order for, on the promise of some kind of exclusive game if you're going to be releasing it to the PC as well. Let's see here. I'll get it up and going. There we go. You should see it here in just a second. Yes, Quantum Break version, PC version confirmed. This is courtesy of Mr. Let's see, by Timur Hussein. Let's see. So, the Quantum Break website explains that people who pre-order the digital version of Quantum Break for the Xbox One will get a free copy of the Windows 10 edition. So it's not coming out for Steam, it's coming out for Windows 10 on their Windows 10 exclusive store. This offer expires on April 4th, and the game supports saves across Xbox One and PC, but there is no cross-platform play. According to the studio, it is also making a PC version in-house. Let's see, Quantum Break's minimum specs, I have that. Let's see, So yeah, it goes into the original story below. But no, I find it's a bit interesting. When you buy a console, whether it's a PlayStation or an Xbox, you're in, I think, some respects expecting, to have some exclusive games, some exclusive content, so you can rationalize your purchase. And that's how I see consoles. So if you want to own consoles, I can see that as a reason. So when you have games that are supposed to be specifically for your console going to other consoles, whether it's the PlayStation or the PC, I feel like it's a bit of a slap in the face for if you are like a console fan. You're basically being told, yeah, we'll just make these games available to everybody. Now, me personally, I'm all for that. I love there being multi-platform games. I prefer if the PC basically got all the games, but I don't think that'll ever be the case. But it's getting to be more ubiquitous, I would say, for games just to move between consoles. So the idea, I think, originally of like console exclusives is going to be gradually disappearing as consoles become less and less different from one another. I don't know. How's your take on that?
Well, my take on it is I've never really been a huge consoler. I've always had one or two of the latest gen consoles, but usually I get them, play a few things, and then they sit and collect dust. I've always been primary PC, but I can see a couple different arguments to this because, for one, not all consolers really care one way or the other if their game's going to be exclusive. The exclusivity, if I'm saying that correctly, I think usually comes from like there are more complaints over if it's going to be PS4, Xbox One, that kind of thing. Different consoles versus from the PC. I mean, I think nowadays most everybody has almost kind of accepted the fact that most of your games are going to be on PC, or at least a PC and then one console option.
Yeah.
But I mean, on the same note, I can see other people being that extreme and wanting to have that supreme exclusivity of being able to brag, oh, hey, I've got this game, no one else can play it, kind of situation. Personally, though, I think that more games should go the way of full cross-console or cross-platform play. So you can have, there's a few games out there now that do that, where you can play at the same time with someone on PC versus someone on a console.
Yeah, in fact, Final Fantasy XIV, which we dabble in, actually has cross-platform play with the PS3 as well as the PS4.
Yeah, and actually, 11, Final Fantasy 11 was that way as well. You could play on the PS2 and PC at the same.
Did the servers sync up though for those different players? I'm kind of curious.
Yeah, you could play on, be on one server and play with somebody on the PlayStation 2.
I didn't know it went all the way back to that. I thought that just for 14. But
No, that's actually one of the reasons why they have that auto translate system. So you could just kind of type tab and it would auto complete with certain phrases.
yeah,
Partly because it was easier on console to do that, and then also with the different regions playing with different languages, so you could actually have a somewhat hack together conversation with someone who didn't speak the same language as you.
right. And I touched on one thing, but I didn't really go into much detail during that article. Apparently, like I said, it's coming out for the Windows Store, which is, I guess, uh, the descendant of, I guess, games for Windows Live, if you want to call it that. So I was just taking a glance around. I can pull it up here as well, but it's not since me doing it too much, I guess. Basically, it offers what I would guess would be games you can purchase directly through Windows and play on the Windows without going through Steam. But it's a bit strange though, because I see a lot of games on there. You can get them both on Steam and on Windows. So I'm not sure what Microsoft is trying to do. If they're trying to do like a proprietary platform kind of deal for PC, I don't think it worked at all with games for Windows Live. I don't see it working with Windows 10 and their Windows Store. Although, like, so that's Windows Store is an integrated app now, isn't it not? Or are you familiar with Windows 10?
Yeah, it's they're trying to tie it all in together. I mean,
Yeah.
I think what they're trying to do is interesting. Some would say that they're just trying to filter everything through them and give them all the money. But I mean, hey, if they can pull it off and make it work,
Yeah.
there's nothing really wrong with that. Um,
Well, no.
I mean,
Oh, yeah. Go ahead.
there's the games for Windows Live. It was, I mean, they've started tying it in with Xbox Live
Mm-hmm.
and the Windows for Live game service, so you can buy games through it. You can, um, they're going to have the cloud syncing with the save games and stuff. A bunch of other features, but I mean, what they're trying to do is solid. I mean, it's why not have why not be able to make it to where you can get everything in one place? Because I mean, yeah,
Well,
Steam is great, but I know a lot of people that also aren't really happy with Steam. Not to say that they'd be any happier with the Windows 10 game store, but
yeah. Well, like I said, I've not had a chance to work with the Windows 10 game store. I'm not particularly wanting to get into it at the moment. But one thing I was thinking about now, of course, Xbox, whether you do an Xbox 360 or Xbone, there's of course Xbox Gold or Silver, where basically you have to pay a monthly fee to play online. Whereas, of course, if you're a PC person, you don't have to do that. So what I see being kind of a contention there is you'll have people playing on PC for free on these online servers and such, whereas they're playing with Xbox folks who have to pay a monthly fee on top of whatever internet bill they're paying to play. So I would think that might make some people playing on Xbox consoles question, what am I paying for, for this online community? If you're just playing on PC, you can play for free. So I think that's probably where a lot of the contention comes from, not just a loss of the exclusivity. Now, in Quantum Break's case, I will note that it's a single-player game. So, apart from transferring saves, there's not really much you could really argue in terms of what the Xbox Live would offer versus what it wouldn't. But for a game that does have multiplayer servers or something like that, I can see where there may be some issues there. Is what I would get at.
well, and another thing, and I know it's kind of on topic but kind of off topic at the same time. This just kind of ties back into the having it on the Windows 10 store.
Yeah.
Is they're not completely there yet, but if you've used Windows 10 at all, you may notice when you launch up a game, it'll have the Windows 10 Game Center, so you can actually do recordings and whatnot straight from Windows without having to have any third-party utilities. But eventually, what it's supposed to develop into is you're going to have the ability to do a pure save state. So you don't have to rely on loading your save game. You just load the state the game was in the last time you were running it. So you can just pick up right where you left off instead
Interesting.
of at the last checkpoint, what have you. It's also supposed to start supporting, and again, I'm not sure when exactly, I haven't really looked that much into it. It's supposed to start supporting the ability to, with that save state, that game basically goes to sleep. So when you put that game in a save state, it doesn't eat up near the amount of resources that it was before, if any at all. So you can kind of switch in and out of games without having to worry about save or having to redo so much of your content because your last save point or checkpoint was 15 minutes behind where you had to stop.
I see. And for anyone who listens not curious or what a save state is, it's typically just a kind of flashed memory kind of thing where it kind of stops the game at a certain point and you can pick up from that point. Would that be an apt description, you'd say?
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty much just like taking a snapshot of where you're currently at and you just going right straight back to it.
There we go. If you're familiar with emulation, you're probably already familiar with that, but just a little brief breakdown of that. But yeah, that's Quantum Break. I actually had no interest in the game. I just thought the controversy about whether it being exclusive, not exclusive, or going to Steam or not was fairly interesting. But
so yeah, we've talked about the controversy of what's going on with the game, but what about the game itself? What is it supposed to be bringing to the table that
it's
is
just
making it unique?
it's just a game, I believe. But like I said the whole news about it is, like I said, the cross-platform. As far as I know, it looks to be your run-of-the-mill action adventure game. Something along the lines of Still Alive, or what's that one movie or the game where they have the clicker monsters and or what's I'm trying to think of some mainstream, like I'd say Tomb Raider or whatever like that. Just you run around, you shoot stuff, you kill dudes, and I don't think it's trying to be anything groundbreaking. Let me see. Yeah,
It's just basically your average third-person shooter adventure type game.
yeah. I'm trying to see if I can dig up some more info. Like I said, a lot of the press it's getting is the whole cross-platform business. There's not there's not too much digging into what the game is. At least I've not bothered to look into it. Like I said, I'm not that interested in getting it on the Xbox One or the Windows 10 store, so I've more or less kind of overlooked it. But from what I've seen, like from trailers and such, it doesn't look necessarily like a game that I have to have. I'm sure it'd be just nice to experience, but it's not like a console buying game for me. But anyways, moving forward here, what else do we have? Backdoor to Apple products, specifically the FBI wanting to undermine the encryption of the iPhone of the terrorist here. Let me see, I'll pull up a link here and we'll kind of dig into this here in just a second. But yeah, for those not in the know, recent, I believe it was the terrorist attack that took place in Texas, I believe. Let's see if we can pull it up here. I'll get this article up and going. We'll kind of go into more detail. But basically, the gist of it is they're wanting to look into cracking into this iPhone. And of course, this brings up a whole lot of ethical questions of what kind of security can you expect to have from your software. If the FBI can just break into this, will they get the key to everybody's phone, so to speak? So this is getting a lot of news lately. Let's see if I can add this link here. If you want to go ahead and interject, Bodok, like I said, I'll get the tech going on my side.
I mean, pretty much the gist of it is that they want Apple to crack the encryption on the iPhone to gain access to this one particular phone that they think might have information on other people in the terrorist cell, or more information on the situation altogether.
Yeah. There we go. But now I got go ahead.
Oh, go ahead.
We got the article up, courtesy of Mr. Max Michael. Let's see what he has to say. Apparently, like I said, Apple warns of FBI request to undermine encryption. So, Yesterday, Apple CEO Tim Cook published a post called "A Message to Our Customers." The post warns of an FBI request which, if obeyed by Apple, would undermine the encryption of Apple phones. Before divulging the full details of the FBI's request, the post explains the importance of encryption to protect the privacy of personal data. In addition to privacy, there was even some cases where encryption is required to protect a person's safety. This is an important point to make because safety is the exact reason being used as an excuse to undermine the encryption. The request relates to the San Bernardino shooting. In the aftermath of the attack, the FBI requested data held by Apple to assist with their investigation, and Apple provided everything that they could in compliance with the lawful subpoena. Apple has also made engineers available to advise the FBI. However, Apple says that they cannot comply with the latest request. In order to circumvent the encryption on the phone belonging to one of the shooters, the FBI is requesting that Apple build a custom version of the iOS with a backdoor and install it on the phone. Cook argues that this would undermine the security of all iPhones, although the government claims it would just be used a single time on this specific phone, and once the software exists and is in government hands, they can potentially install it on any phone. So I guess that's the point of contention for most folks. Scrolling on down here, let's see if we can get a quote. Let's see, so... this order is justified by the All Writs Act, which essentially gives courts the power to issue any orders that are necessary or appropriate to assist with the execution of already issued orders. In this case, the order to force Apple to circumvent the phone's encryption is to assist the execution of a search warrant on the phone itself. Cook's post also warns of the dangerous precedent this order sets. He states, the implications of the government's demands are chilling. If the government can use the All Writs Act to make it easier to unlock your iPhone, it would have the power to reach into anyone's device to capture their data. The government could extend this breach of privacy and demand that Apple build surveillance software to intercept your messages, access your health records or financial data, track your location, or even access your phone's microphone or camera without your knowledge. And that's a little bit scary right there.
Well, definitely, because I mean, considering for one that particular law was developed, something over 100 years ago or so.
Yes.
So it wasn't even taking into effect how broad current technologies are, and
right,
and how something like that would be a complete invasion of your privacy.
Right, and it doesn't pertain to me so much since I use, I guess you call it a Windows phone. It's LG. And I'm not big on Apple products. But, even still, a lot of people do use Apple products, and like I said, like Mr. Cook presented, this sets a dangerous precedent on how they can utilize that act. So, even though it's just going to be affecting an Apple phone in this instance, I don't like the doors it opens for the future in terms of your personal security, or your privacy, to be more specific.
Yeah, I mean, really all it takes is for them to gain a foothold somewhere, and then they can just completely invade all other aspects of similar technologies.
And
the other thing to this, which I think has been what most people see as the point of contention in this, at least from what I'm able to tell, is there's the argument of, why won't Apple help us, because this is they're protecting terrorists kind of thing.
Yeah,
it's not that at all. I mean, what they're trying to do is explain to people who have no technical knowledge at all that these phones are encrypted with a specific algorithm that determines the encryption. Once you break that algorithm, you could essentially unlock any phone you wanted with very little effort afterwards.
Right.
And that's the thing that they're trying to look out for. But there's that aspect, and then there's a whole other points of arguments that I could come up with. Like, for one, this is the government. If they really wanted to do that, they have the means and should have the know-how that they could crack this phone themselves. I think they're just trying to get something started to kind of get a better foothold with being able to get into everybody's lives and invade their privacy a little easier.
Yeah, that it's kind of tinfoily, but that's not entirely impossible, I don't think. So I see where you're going with that. There's also, from what I've heard, the phone in question, the alleged phone, is not his actual phone. He actually like destroyed the phone he regularly used, and the phone that they recovered is actually a burner phone. So basically, it's a cheapo. It's still an iPhone, but it's relatively speaking uh, disposable in regards to the phone that he originally had. So it's debatable to what extent or what information would actually be on said phone that would actually aid in any kind of investigation. So, like I said, to your point, it looks more like Uncle Sam's just flexing his muscle just to see if he can put Apple under his thumb in this case, is what it looks like to the
Right.
outside eye, I think.
I think last I heard, it was actually the phone was company property, like it belonged to whatever company the guy worked for, and the company was also given their permission, since the phone belonged to them,
Mm-hmm.
to break the encryption on the phone. But it kind of extends beyond themselves. I mean, yeah, I mean it's things like this usually kind of get me a little hot to have that conversation, because it's just a lot of, you got people that are trying to demand things who have no knowledge of how things work, and then you have this now you have this big debacle and lawsuits going. And there's one thing though that I think I heard, I could be wrong though, that
Yeah.
Apple is actually asking the government to pass new laws that would essentially, like they're saying, if you want this done, then pass a law that specifically allows this, and not some kind of generic law that's letting you into this now.
Right. Although, like I said, like on to your point, a lot of our state senators, our representatives, I don't want to be ageist, you know, but I would say there's a significant portion of our legislative branch that are literally don't know how email works. Like they use it, but if you were to ask them, the actual engineering, the technical aspects of, how do you know that your email is going to be on this computer? They couldn't really explain it to you. Like, oh well, it just works, you know. And so there's numerous issues in regards to security and compliance with that security. If you want to get into some more political water, we could talk about Hillary Clinton's email debacle. But that's just one case. Like I believe in her case, she she said that she didn't know that the emails on the computer in question was like a personal email account versus her government email account, or if they somehow mix them up or something like that. But like so that's just one case, you know. So how many other members of our government are simply don't know how what they're using actually works. That's scary to me, you know. But yeah, that's our government at work. Me let me look here. But enough straying in the political territory, though. Let me pull up our next bit here. Nintendo news. I've been wanting to touch on Nintendo a bit more, uh, although I'm not a Nintendo fan, but I've been bitching a lot lately. Uh,
Now, I seem to remember you playing a lot of
mhm.
what was that old RTS, or not really RTS, but
Turn-based strategy,
yeah,
Advanced Wars.
Advanced Wars.
Yeah, that was my favorite game, probably for the GBA. But no, I was gonna give you a brief rundown of my history with Nintendo. Like I said, I played SNES, Game Boy Color, Nintendo 64, Game Boy Advance, GameCube, DS, Wii. So suffice it to say, I'm familiar with Nintendo. I've played a lot of their products, and I would say that they're definitely a company that makes quality games. So let me just put that out there to begin with. That being said, as someone who can definitely say they've dipped their toes in the Nintendo pool, I am not liking the direction that Nintendo's taken a lot of their business as of lately. And I'm going to talk about the amiibos. Are you familiar with amiibos, Bodok?
Um, no, unfortunately, I'm not.
I don't know, that's probably for the best, because essentially, from what I've been able to gather, amiibos are little figurines of various Nintendo characters and so forth. And in the base of said figurine, there's a little flash card or a little chip or whatever you'd want to call it that you put it to your controller for the new Wii U, it syncs up, and occasionally there'll be some kind of extra where it will unlock DLC for a game. In the case of Super Smash Bros. Brawl, it lets you train a AI character and teach them moves. So it's a gimmicky little piece of plastic that Nintendo can sell at exorbitant prices to make a lot of money. Um,
So it's kind of like Skylanders.
yes, that's probably the closest thing I could compare it to the layman out there who's not familiar. But they're essentially Nintendo's version of Skylanders. And I guess what butters my biscuits really rough about this is they they don't want to really kind of do conventional DLC. It's all through amiibos for the most part, from what I can see. I think you can still use the Nintendo Store to buy like classic games for the Wii or the Wii U, but for like say you want to unlock a special costume in Brawl or unlock a different a paint job for a car in a racing game, you have to buy like a specific amiibo, and that specific amiibo, or maybe in some cases you have to buy multiple numbers of these things to unlock one aspect of a game instead of them just selling it, as a 99-cent DLC or $1.25 DLC. They're making you pay for these plastic figurines with a little chip in them to rationalize DLC content, which I think it's bananas. And if you're a Nintendo fan and you follow their cult, which I'll call it at this point, then yes, I guess if you want to support Nintendo, that's what you do. But as a consumer who just is frugal with their money, I could not rationalize purchasing amiibos. I don't know. But like I said, you're not too familiar yourself, like you said, Mr. Bodok, right?
No, but I can pretty much go ahead and tell you that I wouldn't go that route either. I mean, it, it's kind of odd. Nintendo's kind of used to be the console to have, the powerhouse of the console market altogether, and as went by, they kind of they stayed up at the top, but it was only through their gimmicks and
Name
understand
recognition, yeah.
name recognition, their gimmicks, and they have a firm understanding that if they can convince the kids to want it, the parents will get it for them.
Right.
And that's kind of the direction, and of course, in my opinion, that Nintendo's gone. Like it used to, I wouldn't mind being a 34-year-old man sitting there playing a NES or a GameCube or even a Wii. They had really fun party games, really fun games in general. Blast.
Yeah.
The Wii U, it does have some of those same games, but the direction they're taking the others, and then from what you've explained about these amiibos, nah. I mean, because there was one time where I actually considered buying a Wii U just to play Mario Maker, because
Yeah.
I wanted to create my own Mario levels, share them with friends, play them, what have you. And that was going to be the only reason that I would buy a Wii U. But even now, I'm still kind of. I don't think I will, because I've always been really frugal about my purchases. But if there would be a reason for me to buy a new Nintendo console, that one Mario Maker game would have been it. And I think that's kind of part of what Nintendo's relies on is having those one or two really popular things.
System sellers, yeah.
Yeah, system sellers, people that things that people like. Oh man, I'm going to buy a console just for that.
Yeah.
Or you got these kids that these kids want to have these little figurines. Like I know Skylanders is and was real huge. Um, there's a Disney uh, game that also kind of uses the same aspects,
Yeah.
where you buy the figurines.
I believe it's
and you
called
unlock.
Disney Infinity or something like that.
Yeah, Disney Infinity, and they get these little figurines. They're collectibles. They'll trade them. It's it's basically Nintendo's way of getting the kids to convince the parents to buy more consoles and more stuff.
Yeah.
And that's really the only way that they're staying in the market nowadays is they've got to convince more of their product to be purchased, and this is unfortunately one of those ways.
Right. And like I said, so that's my contention with the amiibos. Some people are really into collecting. Like I have a friend of mine, the Baggins. He has like a sinful amount of them. Of course, and he collects a lot of them. There are people who collect more than he does. So there is a market for this stuff. I've seen it. Like I said, I just can't rationalize that kind of collecting myself. Although I say that with like a whole bunch of Steam games in my library that I've not even bothered to even touch. So, I don't know. The grass is always greener, as they say.
But you know what? If there comes a day that you don't have anything to do, it's there and it's more content than a collectible would have been.
Yeah.
Because I'm in the same boat. I've got, probably half or better of my Steam library are games that I've bought on sale that I've never gotten to, or probably it may not even ever play, but it was on sale in $5 or $10, and I'm like, sure, why not? I might play it one day, and that's that. But I mean, like I said, you're getting a lot more content than just what that one little figurine would unlock, and it's digital. So in theory, unless something happens to Steam, you will be able to always access it.
Yeah. Uh, More on Nintendo news. Again, this is. Are you familiar with Fire Emblem?
A little bit, yeah.
Okay. Basically, the company that does the translation for Fire Emblem, a company by the name of Treehouse, has made some rather bizarre changes. Some would consider it localization. Others are calling it outright censorship. Let me get some. I'll get a little link up here for us here in just a second. I will go ahead and note this editorial I'm going to pull up here. This guy is a little bit probably on the anti-social justice warrior side. He's kind of a little bit to the right. So I would take what he says with a bit of salt. And I can't guarantee everything in here has been confirmed, but there's been a lot of digging here as I pull this up. So let me go ahead and I'll get this pulled up here in just a second. And while I'm getting this put together, I just also want to specify that yes, Fire Emblem Fates does appear to have been significantly localized for the United States. Although this is not the first time a game of this caliber has been changed to this degree. Localization or censorship, or however you want to verse it, is something that's been going on since the early Nintendo days. So, like I said, this is definitely not the last case of what you would call localization / censorship, and it, it's definitely not the first either. So let me get this going up here. If you'd like, but I'll go ahead and, I guess, get that out of there. Do you have any issues or discussions worthy of censorship, games you're interested in, or anything of that nature while I get this pulled up?
Well, I guess it kind of depends. What's the extent of the censorship or localization that they're doing for Fire Emblem Fates?
Let's see if I can find. Let's see, pull this up here. There's one instance where basically, in the Japanese game, for instance, there's this character. You get one S support. Let's see. They are your main romantic interest, who you wed, and who you have a child with. If you make your avatar a female, you'll also have a son. He can S support with one girl and marries her in the Japanese version. So in the Japanese version, he can get one of 3 different waifus. However, in the US version, they basically say no thanks in every possible scenario. So basically what they're saying is, I guess if you buy the US version, your kid's not getting any. So you can argue, well, localization, or they decided that it was better to not have your child have kids. I don't understand the logic behind that, or what the reason would be to make that kind of decision. But still, that's their choice to make that decision, the localizer's choice. But as a consumer, you have every right to say, well, why the hell are you taking that out of the game? Why was that removed or changed for the American audience? So there's that piece. Numerous text edits have also taken place. From what I've heard, some stuff has been benign. Other stuff, like I said, is just the nature of localization. Supposedly, some of the text edits reference older stuff in previous Fire Emblem games released in the United States. I'll pull this up. Here's another picture. Basically, it's the original version shows. Let's see. It has all these different swimsuits you can make your waifu wear. A risque let's see, risque swimsuit, bath towel, flower swimsuit, and all this other stuff. Whereas in the American version, all they get to wear is a towel. Now, like I said, I'm not too sure about this picture. It's been floating around a bit, but from what I understand, like I said, there is an English patch up already done by somebody that kind of more or less just ports the Japanese content over to a palatable English reader. So it can kind of show in contrast what the Japanese version offers versus what the American version offers. And like I said, so in some regard, you can argue, well, who's telling closer to the truth of what the original game was. So it's kind of up in the air. Lots of mudflinging, and more to the point, reading this editorial as I've gone through it, a lot of the members who work for Treehouse, which is the localization company for this game, have had these kind of bizarre tweets, kind of left-leaning, kind of feminist-style tweets that kind of make you question: do they have an agenda? What's with this particular tweet? Let's see if I can pull something up here, kind of as a reference. If you want to interject, feel free to cut me off here as I kind of dig through.
Well, I think a lot of it, and I don't want to sound like I'm defending anybody or being more just the rational one here, I guess. There's always going to be an issue with localizing a game from a different region, and one, you've got the issues that there are phrases and sentence context, or even just the way they approach conversation that don't always make sense to a typical American player,
Right.
And a lot of the things just don't translate well or don't have a translation because it's kind of like a phrase or slang there that literally has no meaning to an English audience whatsoever, so they have to make something up.
Right.
So a lot of that will come from diehard fans, or for lack of a better way of putting it, like otaku, just basically people who are hardcore, or not even really hardcore, but just people that are into the culture altogether.
Yeah.
Or just big gamers, the actual real hardcore gamers that would want the original content. So you have some of that issues there, where it would be nice if they would just always give you the option of, like, because when I can, I usually choose Japanese audio and
Right.
with the English text. So because I have just a mild understanding of a lot of spoken Japanese, so I can kind of, without having to follow along too closely, understand what's going on. So and the games kind of flow better with that aspect. The other thing too is their rating system is a lot different over there.
Right.
So when you're bringing media in, or just creating media in general, and you're having to go by the ERSB standards, if they're wanting to hit a specific standard, then they probably have to make these edits and cuts to be able to sell it to that audience, because the United States, we're very
Christian fundamentalist.
well, that, and
Yeah.
we tend to like to think that we live sheltered lives, though. If you look at the standard show on TV, on primetime television, you're going to catch more side boob and ass than you would 10 years ago on a typical TV show.
Yeah.
So I think they kind of focused their areas in the wrong department. But that's a whole nother conversation altogether. But that's not to say that there isn't somebody at Treehouse, that has another agenda, or seems to be butthurt because they think it's too feminist, or they don't like the way that a female's avatar's boob bounce. And I could say to a less insecure woman that that might make you feel a little self-conscious, but if you just realize that it's just a game, so
Yeah.
it's not real life, and unless you're teaching that the game is real life, then that's the only reason I could see where you would have an issue with that. So
Yeah.
I think a lot of this though probably has to do with they're probably trying to make it E for everyone, and a lot of that stuff they're probably having to trim out to hit that mark.
I think it's T for teen. Let me double check. Like just looking around here. I will go ahead and, for clarification, I'm not a big Fire Emblem fan, so I haven't been watching this one too closely. I'm familiar with the turn-based strategy genre, and this kind of falls into that little area that I do have interest in. I'm just not the big Fire Emblem fan. Emblem Fates. Let's see, rating. Let's see, where's the rating here? It is rated T for teen, so it does have that T rating that gives it a pass. They can have sexual situations. Let's see, animated blood, fantasy violence, and suggestive themes. So, I guess if a character is drunk or if they're hitting on another character, they can have that in there. So I don't think they were trying to get underneath such a level so they could have an E for E rating. But of course you couldn't have known that. But and it's a very muddy issue. Like I said, this has been kicking off since I think February 19th or so, and it's all started because of. Are you familiar with the petting mini game?
No, I'm not.
Basically, there's a number of different waifus in the game, and you can pet them to make them like you more, or do better in battle, or something ridiculous like that. It's a quirky Japanese theme kind of deal, and that got removed. So that rustled quite a few people's jimmies here and there, who wanted to have the authentic Japanese experience of petting their waifu. That's kind of like I said, from my perspective, it's kind of goofy, but I would also defend them. Wanting to have their content uncriticized or uncut in this case. Like as much as I would find disdain for just a blatant, just weeaboo-tastic kind of interaction, but like I said, it's if it's that was in the game, I would not want that content cut. In the defense, like I said, well, I guess like you said, it's also for the purpose of localization, to make it palatable to American audiences. So I guess the niche audience is the one getting I guess turned over here, as the case would be.
Well, I mean, I don't know. I guess it'd be nice if companies would release it in let's say a DLC or something, like pay $3 to unlock the original version or something like that. I mean, I could even almost get behind something like that. I mean, it
$3 to pet your waifu.
Well, I mean, it wouldn't be only that, but it would be like, okay, pay $3 to unlock the original version of this game.
Yeah.
So you could have all the little nuances, the bathing suits, the stuff like that. If they're running into problems with localization, I mean, I guess that would still bring on a whole other problem altogether. But I mean, the way I see it is, if you're paying full price for a game, I would want the full thing and not some trimmed down kiddie version, because I think my teen doesn't understand what's behind a bathing suit versus what's behind a towel.
Yeah. But if there is an alternative, if you're so desiring with this game, you can buy a non-region locked version of the DS, or 3DS I should say. I think it's the Japanese 3DS. Anyway, you can buy that version of 3DS and import the Japanese Fire Emblem Fates, and I think there's a way to mod it so that you can have the English patch on there if you want to do it the legit way. If you're a pirate, matey, there may be some less scrupulous manners you can go about to play the game as well. But like I said, I'm not that interested in the game to pursue that particular path. So, like I said, again, I can definitely see why so much dust is getting kicked up about Fire Emblem Fates. I just wish I cared a bit more about that game in particular. I'd probably be a bit more vocal. But
speaking of importing Japanese versions of the Game Boy, have you heard about? I think it's the Game Boy Macro.
Game Boy Macro. I'll Google it real quick and see if we can't put it up on the screen.
Yeah, basically, this guy has come up with a way, and here I'll shoot you a link of, and he'll do this. You can actually go on a waiting list, and he will do this for you for a price. But basically, you take a Nintendo DS, be it light or fat,
Mm-hmm.
and you disassemble it, take off the top portion,
I
and
see.
you're only using the bottom half as your Game Boy Advance.
Ah,
So
I see.
so you're basically making a super thin, small Game Boy Advance
Inter-
slash Game Boy console to kind of tote around with you, because you don't need both screens, and you can
right.
actually set the game to play on the bottom screen.
Mm-hmm.
And looks like he basically gets, either you send him your console or he gets used ones or something, and does this, paints them up. From some of the ones that he's demoed look really great.
Yeah.
Actually, have picked up a couple of DS lights from eBay. I think I've spent maybe $20 on two that had like the hinge broke,
Right.
so it doesn't lock in place.
Right.
And so I'm going to give this a shot here once I get some free time to take them apart and make a couple of them, try
Okay.
it out.
Let me copy that link. I posted up on the screen for a second, but the page is kind of goofy for me. But I'll post that link in the show notes. So after we get done with this, you can go ahead and check out Game Boy Macro. It actually looks really cool. Let me see if I'll try and get it up on the screen here again. Like as Bodok just explained, it's basically like a super flat Game Boy Advance with an extra large screen. Because it's part of the. Is it 3DS or is it regular 2DS?
It's just regular the regular DS Lite or the DS Fat, the first DS.
Yeah.
Uh, because the DS the DSi, or I think it's the 3DS.
Mm-hmm.
You can't do it with that, and I
Right.
don't think they recommend doing it with the DS I with the, well, I don't know. I'd have to go back and reread the article, but basically
Yeah.
the one games that use the actual DS games,
Mm-hmm.
they're all dual screens, so there's no point in doing this if you're wanting to play DS games on it. This is purely if you're just interested in playing, ROMs, or if you've got Game Boy Advanced or Game Boy cartridges, because this just has the actually, now that I remember, it's all the consoles, the DS consoles that have the bottom the DS cart, or not the DS, but the GBA cartridge slot,
Right.
which I think they eliminated from the one with the camera, the DSi, or
Let's see. Okay, so let me read this here. So if you're interested, orders are currently closed. Stay tuned for updates. So he's so busy he can't do anything else right now because so many people have tried to nab one of these bad boys. So let's see. Pricing $130 if you provide all the materials. $110 if the buyer provides a DS to work with. Let's see. Shipping $5 anywhere in the U.S. International shipping $25. So yeah, it definitely looks cool. Definitely give this website a check out. Game Boy Macro. Let's see. Oops. And like I said, you can't order it right now, but at the very least, it'll give a brief rundown of how you can do it yourself if you want to tinker around and put one together.
yeah, I mean, it's definitely a lot better option than if you were wanting the. I don't know if you ever saw the actual licensed Game Boy I think it's the Macro or Mini.
Oh.
It's like $500, and it
Holy
basically does
shit.
the same thing.
Yeah.
I think. See, here's your link to a Amazon listing of one.
Yeah. See if I can get that up here in a second.
It was a 20th anniversary edition. Is
I
what they
see.
released these for.
Right. The official Nintendo version, so you better pay extra. Yeah, I see. Give me just a second. We'll get it up on the screen just to show folks. There we go. If you have an extra $499 to throw around, you can buy yourself a pocket-sized GBA. Now this is of course the anniversary edition, 20th anniversary edition, so it'll definitely be worth something. Maybe, possibly, we don't know. Hopefully, if you pay $400 and goddamn near $500 for it. But Yeah. Quite, and of course, like I said, so for that, for $500, you get a tiny little Game Boy, versus like what you're offering. If for this guy, if you send him, if he had the time available, for it's $110, you could get a nice DS screen, you know, and be able to, let's see, what's this?
Well, that's actually the same listing, but you can get just a standard one for
Yeah,
$300.
yeah,
So,
but still, that's quite a bit for a Game Boy.
oh, definitely, especially when that guy on that website will do it all for you for what, $140.
Uh, I think he's like 130 if you don't have a DS, 110 uh, if so. He's not really making that much money. Like it's definitely a hobby project for him. Um, so if he actually, oh, go ahead.
Oh no, I was saying it's definitely a labor of love for that guy, because I could imagine the amount of unless you just got it down to a science, the amount of time you got to put in sanding and repainting and even working with a little, because you got to modify the top screen and
Yeah.
the wireless antenna, because for some strange reason, if the Wi-Fi card is not present or doesn't detect the Wi-Fi card in your DS, then
Mm-hmm.
it won't boot.
Interesting.
But so you have to kind of rewire it so that it's still there, but it's not going to work.
All right. But now that's some interesting stuff. But like I said, I'll have that in the show notes. So if you want to check out the Game Boy Macro as opposed to the Game Boy Micro, like I said, definitely give that a look. See, it's an interesting bundle. So moving on here to our final point of the night, the WTFU. Where's the fair use? I've kind of been paying attention to this. I don't have too much of a dog in this race. Like I said, I don't monetize my videos, and I don't have any aspirations of ever becoming internet famous. But if you put out a lot of content on YouTube, if you're the kind of guy who has 20 videos a month or something, and you get revenue from those videos, this is definitely an issue that you're definitely paying attention to. It's let's see if we can't get this pulled up here. I don't have a link for us, but I can kind of go over the brief issues that we're running into. Basically, any kind of media corporation can claim a copyright on your video. So if there's like a small amount of music, or if they recognize enough of like a video in your background, they could possibly claim that you're not using it in fair use, and have your video more or less taken over, and all of the income you would get from that video will go directly to those media corporations, and that will keep going that way until you resolve the copyright claim. And the issue really comes from the fact that content creators have very little power in how they can fight this. Because as of right now, if you make a copyright claim, you're almost completely insulated from any kind of kickback. So you have enough money to hire all kinds of lawyers, so trying to take them to court's useless. And recently, Doug, what's his name? The guy who does the Nostalgia Critic, he had a lot of his videos recently taken down and copyright claims placed on him. So he is put in a rather precarious position, because that's where he gets his bread and butter. I'm not a big fan of the Nostalgia Critic. I don't really care for his video formula. But, to his credit, he has a lot of followers, he has a lot of people watching his videos, so he must be doing something right, And for these media corporations just to come in, and if there's like too much of anything, they can just chop that video from your, income list, And, if that's one or two or three or four videos, that get a lot of views and make you money, that's money out of your pocket. So there's quite a bit of dust getting kicked up from the where's the fair use, because apparently there is no more fair use. You can't show clips of anything anymore without worrying about getting a copyright notice. And if I'm talking too long, let me know and I'll let you interject here.
No, I mean, probably what I would have to comment on that would be that this is kind of, I would say, probably just a product of where a lot of this day and age's media is going, is the small-time individual or small groups of people that are making content and putting them online, either Twitch or YouTube or whatever other
Yeah.
source, and that's becoming a big business and big media outlet. The problem that they run into is, one, dealing with all these arbitrary and archaic copyright and fair use laws that most um, stations or major media outlets would have teams of lawyers and people that would actually figure out what they can and can't do and what they can and can't use,
Right.
and like you said, insulate themselves. Um, with that being said, though, there's a lot of people that have made tons and tons of money doing this kind of thing, and I think it sucks, but it's going to be kind of a wake up call for the whole market, that they're going to have to pay more attention to this kind of stuff.
Right.
And I can't say that it's fair, but I can't say that it's unfair either. It's just part of the business. I mean, like you take a look at some of the YouTube personalities out there, like Captain Sparkles. He does a lot of Minecraft and other videos.
Mm-hmm.
Dude drives around in a Bentley. Okay,
Yeah.
so he's obviously making, and this is all he does, from what I understand. He only makes YouTube and other videos. So I mean, he's monetized the crap out of that, and he's even now got these little figurines that he's doing advertisements for, and he's one of them. And
Nice.
like Tube Heroes or something, I think is what it's called.
Mm-hmm.
Then you've got other people like actually a group of guys that started out doing podcasting called Yogscast. I don't know if you've heard of them or watched any of their stuff.
I've seen a few of their things. They had their video game project they were working on, but that kind of fizzled out, I think. Or did they actually get that thing put out?
I think it came out, but I think it was really only popular with their audience.
Yeah.
But their audience is huge. I mean,
Right.
But they're guys that started off doing podcasts, then went into gaming with Minecraft. They did a huge and very popular and hilarious Minecraft series,
Yeah.
and then they kind of branched off from there. Now they're an actual full-fledged company, and they have probably a couple dozen employees and other people that do videos under their umbrella.
Right.
So I mean, they're making tons and tons of money themselves. So I mean, I think it's going to be probably a big wake up call for a lot of content creators that were out there who were kind of just riding on the skirts of everyone else, and now that things are coming more to light, they're probably going to start being hit more because
Right.
again, they don't have that insulation that you were talking about.
Yeah, and even if they're actually using fair use, by the time that the copyright claim business is sorted out, which I think this didn't take like a month or more, that's about the time a video can get all of its good views in, all the revenue from it. So the company will get all that revenue, and by the time the copyright claim is over and they've resolved it, it doesn't matter anymore. All the views have been had, and all the money has already went to that claim company. So what has been argued by some content creators is that maybe the money should go to a kind of mediator account, and then once the claim has been resolved, then the funds would either return to the content creator or then go to the claimant based on the outcome of that, which I think sounds fair. If you're going to make a claim, does that mean you're automatically entitled to someone else's income based on that claim? If you're not even sure or if it's not been proven that there was actually a valid claim there. That's I guess the big point contention, because that's the mechanic currently in place with YouTube.
Yeah, I mean, if that was the case, then I could say, hey, I'm in this podcast, you're using my content, I want your paycheck.
Yeah. if I actually manage to make any money from this thing, but no.
But yeah, no, I think that would be good ideas. Either put it on hold and or put the money into a holding account and just let it sit there until a ruling has passed, instead of having to figure it out after the fact.
That sounds better to me than what the current system is, where like it goes directly to the claimant and you have no recourse basically, as a content creator.
And do you even get that money back if the claim goes in your favor?
I believe you do. Well, hold on, let's see. Well, no, you don't get the money back if while it is being contested. Uh, that while it's being contested, all the money goes to the claimant. And once you get the video turned back over under your umbrella of rights, then any income after the fact then goes to you. So there's it's very in the corner of media corporations who have copyrights over content. You know, because they can argue that you did use that content that they made, and therefore they were entitled to the money while there was being mediation, you know, to determine whether or not he was fair use. And the fair use is the issue.
I mean, I could totally see companies just sitting there and, you know, making claims.
Exactly, that they can do that with impunity.
Yeah, just for that extra income, regardless of if it ends up being in their favor or not. You know,
Yeah.
it's free money to them either way if they just have a smidgen of proof to be able to make the claim to begin with.
Yeah. And like I said, the alternative is, you know, you can try to sue them for those funds back, but, you know, what is the humble internet, you know, YouTube content creator going to do to, like, Disney or Viacom or whichever company happens to own it, who has, like, no doubts a whole, like, army of lawyers ready to lock that litigation up in months and months of just however much it would take just so you can earn, like, I don't know, I guess if your YouTube video is really successful, maybe $1,000, maybe a couple $1,000s, you know, and by then you spent who knows how much money in legal fees. So they'll legally fuck you over, basically. So, yeah, so you may win legally, but you'll lose financially, and that's why no one can really do anything to circumvent it. And that's why, like, as someone who does make stuff, you know, and I don't use any really any content other than maybe video game footage, you know, but I'd want these rights to definitely be fair use, in particular, to be able to use by me or whomever else, you know, because without fair use, you don't have criticism anymore. You can't post anything that might be related to the content you're criticizing because, you know, you fair use, you know, or any other use of the content that would fall into the fair use umbrella. You know, it's important we maintain that, I think. But, you know, that's my little bread box right there. But no, we're closing in on a little over an hour now. I'm out of topics except for LAN parties. I was going to kind of go over this briefly because I've been kind of wanting to talk about this with someone else who knows what I'm talking about. I don't know, are LAN parties done? I've not been to a LAN party since 2000. I want to say 2011 or so. That's, I think, the last time we got together. If you were even down there, I'm trying to think.
Possibly. But I think LAN parties are, for the most part, they're going to be rare. I mean, it's basically because, I mean, you have such a wide broadband internet is basically, you know, almost anybody can get it nowadays unless you're living in a rural area. So
Yeah.
and you've got so many different VoIP applications like Ventrilo, TeamSpeak, Mumble, what have you, Skype, that it's so easy now that you can get a small little party after work or on the weekends together without having to move all your junk and play.
Just, play out over the internet. Whereas back in the day, you know, you didn't have a reliable connection, or even if you did, someone else may not. So it was more economical just to group everybody in the same room where you could get a reliable connection.
Well, not only that, but you had so many games that just didn't have an internet-based multiplayer.
It was all just LAN. Yeah,
you had to play over a LAN, or you had to use some kind of program like Hamachi or something to create a VPN between everybody so they could play on the same virtual LAN. And that causes all kinds of problems on its own. But I mean, there have been a few LAN parties up here, but it's mostly been for like benefits and fundraisers and stuff. That
seems to be the case. It's less and less of like a little communal get together, and more it seems like it's for either events or competitions nowadays. Is what I'm seeing.
Yeah, they could just, you know, between the crowd that would do that kind of thing, because it's, you know, most people that would want to do a LAN party are an older crowd now,
Yeah.
and that were, those that were used to having to do LAN parties. And for one, everybody's busy nowadays. Everybody has a job or everything else they have to take care of, or moved away from that original group of friends that they like to play with.
Mm-hmm.
It's not always as easy, but I mean, yeah, I wouldn't mind having a LAN party every once in a while. Although I, I've grown accustomed to my specific gaming setup that
Yeah.
I don't know. It would be hard to. I would have to
Like you
redo.
have 4 monitors, you said, right?
Yeah, so I use surround gaming. So most games, at least the ones that'll support it, are spanned across 3 monitors,
Mm-hmm.
and then I have one up above those three, so I can throw up guides on stuff or watch something or whatever else. I mean, heck, I've also got a 40-inch TV off to the side of
Yeah.
that too. So so when you go into my computer room, you're like inundated with monitors, and I mean, you get a suntan if you're not careful.
No, I hear that. But no, I certainly miss LAN parties myself. I miss, seeing everybody's face, sitting down, eating some food, passing out in a chair. Those are memories I won't ever forget, I don't think.
Yeah, I mean, they were definitely fun. I mean, it's the pranks and
Mm-hmm.
cutting up with people, doing little things here and there, having snacks, the things you would do other than play games. Just
Yeah.
because we'd almost always do other kind of party games as well, or
Yeah.
we'd go at some point. We usually all go eat a proper restaurant or something, or
Yeah, buffet, those are good.
yeah. Um, yeah, I mean, it definitely it's missed, though. I wouldn't say that I would push to do them as often as we used to, because I think at one time we were doing them like every 3 months or so.
Yeah, I wasn't living that close to you fellas when you're doing so. I didn't do it quite every 3 months, but I tried to get in as often as I could. Uh, remember back when we were living down near Columbia, we would do it near Tech Pros, or do it in Tech Pros. If you're not familiar, Tech Pros is it was, I'm not sure if it's even up still anymore, a computer workshop, and every so often we just kind of close it down and convert it into like a LAN party gaming area. It was it was really wild. Like it was a different time then, and it was just fun. Like that's the best way I can describe just being with your friends and playing video games all night.
Yeah, I mean, basically, if somebody's listening to this that doesn't know what a LAN party is, it's basically all of your friends that you game with, bringing their computers along, all their equipment, lugging everything in, setting everything up, and this is something that you want to typically do over the period of a weekend or a holiday, something where you've got at least 2 or 3 good days, if not more, of
Yeah,
hanging out together, playing games, no sleep.
yeah,
And you basically you set up a network, and early days, you know, I think one of my very first LAN parties I went to, we set up. It was in Richland School
mm-hmm,
in Giles County, and the Boy Scouts were putting it on, and we created a big token ring coax network, which that may even be before your time.
yeah. You'll have to explain that to me. I assume it's some kind of I guess physical kind of amalgamation of what we would have digitally now.
Basically, it's computer networking, but with coax cable, like you would hook up to your TV.
Oh, like a cable, like cable TV cables. You're saying, right?
Right, same. Use similar cable, but you had to have special network cards. It was one of the early ways of creating a ad hoc network,
Interesting.
or an infrastructure network. So, I mean, luckily, because not everybody would have the right equipment, but luckily one of the guy's parents was computer tech, so he had a bunch of them lying around, and everybody was sitting there shoving network cards in and getting things set up. And I think that one was huge. We had it in the cafeteria, and
Dang.
it was over the period of a weekend. and we were all, it was basically a school lock-in slash LAN party.
I gotcha.
Um,
And
yeah.
what I'll have to ask, what games were you playing in this wonderful year?
Um, a lot of Warcraft 2 and a lot of StarCraft.
Ah, yeah, those
That were
games. Let's see. Oh, go
that
ahead.
was the big games of that time. There were other ones as well. Um, I can't really I mean, that's been so long ago, I can't remember. But that probably the two most popular ones that we played the most during that time would have been that.
Well, I was gonna say,
But
what was all right? What year was this, or the period of this? I guess would be saying.
oh, this probably would have had to have been 97.
Nice. I see. Okay, so let's see. I believe was Quake out at that point.
Um,
I
I don't remember.
or any FPS, or was it all just RTS? It's like you said,
No,
Warcraft and StarCraft.
I mean there were some FPSs out. I mean,
Yeah, and
Quake
not
could have
in
been.
'97. Yeah.
I mean, I don't remember some, off the top of my head, but I mean, we did play more things than that. So I would imagine if one of those games were out, we did play it.
Yeah.
So that would have been on the docket as well to kind of get into. But
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, fun times. I mean, basically, I remember one night we were everybody was getting ready to pass out. I mean, you're talking like way early in the morning,
Mm-hmm.
and everybody finally passes out in random places. They brought sleeping bags and were sleeping all over the school basically.
Nice.
And so I went around to everybody's computers that was still up and running and unlocked and everything, and installed a program called Bonzi Buddy.
Oh, really?
And basically, what Bonzi Buddy is now, it's like this malware, not really malware, but it's adware program. But it was this program that made a talking parrot.
Oh, really?
I think now it's a purple monkey, but yeah, back then it was like a green parrot, and
Mm-hmm.
you could have him say things. He would tell you the weather. Um, he would try and read some emails and stuff. It was basically like early text to speech kind of thing.
Yeah.
Think of it as like Clippy,
Mm-hmm.
but something different.
Yeah.
And so I went around installing it on everybody's computer, and I set it up to where it would start talking.
Nice.
And so basically, when people would start using their computers, it would all of a sudden pop up and start talking to everybody. And yeah, after that night, everybody started sleeping under their computer, so they would know if people were messing with it. But
Nice.
that's kind of been the nature of any LAN party. Is those that fell asleep first usually got pranks pulled on them.
Dang. Well, it looks like we're right around. Well, like I said, let's see, an hour. The recording's a bit longer than that, but we're on an hour and 15 minutes now for the stream. Did you want to talk about anything else, or are you about ready to turn in?
Well, I think it's been a pretty good episode so far. Unless there's something else you want to get into.
I was gonna ask about your Shadowrun tabletop experience, because I'm actually a fan of the PC games. I like the lore, I like the cyberpunk setting and so forth. So I think I would enjoy the tabletop. I don't know, how was your tabletop with Shadowrun?
It was pretty fun actually. So far with this particular group of guys, this is our second run,
Mm-hmm.
and right now I'm playing a Sasquatch covert ops that is addicted to beef jerky,
Nice.
and has a drive for Jack Snake's beef jerky. And for those that aren't familiar with the system, and I'm no expert either. This is the first time I'm playing Shadowruns, so I know I'm doing things wrong and whatnot, but I'm just having a good time with it. Is some races you have to spend karma, and karma is kind of your ability points, so to speak. So anything, your stats and aspects and stuff you purchase with karma.
Right.
So out the door, Sasquatches cost you X amount of karma.
Mm-hmm.
So I had like very little karma to work with, and everybody's always making fun. Oh, you're a Sasquatch because you live in Alaska, kind of thing.
Yeah.
So I was like, if they got a Sasquatch play a Sasquatch.
Mm-hmm.
Well, to be able to get some karma back to purchase other things with, you can actually get um, negative aspects. I
Right.
forget what they call it now, but basically it's like things that aren't a positive attribute to
They're not
you.
beneficial, right? So you take those non-beneficial aspects to boost your karma points to allow for more stat allocation.
Right, right. So basically, the two major ones I subscribed to was the addiction to jerky, because it's a play off the Jack Link's beef jerky Sasquatch, and then
Yeah.
there's the drive. So pretty much, if we're in a situation and Jack Link's comes up,
Yeah.
then I can have to stop what I'm doing, and my attention's focused on that.
I see.
So it makes the GM the DM throws some things in there every once in a while to keep it interesting for me.
I
So
see.
yes, actually plays off that aspect, and I've almost gotten myself into some trouble a couple of times now because of it. But it's been pretty fun.
So if
I
you
mean,
ever break into the Jax Link's HQ to do a shadow run and hack into their systems, your character's gonna have some trouble getting through there.
well, the thing about the drive, it doesn't necessarily mean that I go crazy and like I have to take the shortest path to get
Mm-hmm.
it.
Yeah.
It just means that if I was trying to rescue the princess,
Yeah.
I'm no longer rescuing the princess. I'm going to get my ass some beef jerky. So
Yeah.
it makes for the other people in my group have to kind of play off that too, so they can kind of help me and still help the group
I see.
move forward when something like that does happen.
I gotcha.
And for those that aren't familiar with a Shadowrun, I mean, of course, can Google it for more information, but it's basically like Dungeons and Dragons or any other tabletop type game. It has its own set of rules and character creation and whole universe that you have to kind of
Yes.
abide by, unless you're kind of doing something homebrew. But
Right.
I mean, basically it's like a future age
Cyberpunk.
cyberpunk post-apocalyptic type. Not, eh, not really. Well, I wouldn't say post-apocalyptic, but it's more cyberpunk. But you
Dystopian
still,
future, kind of.
yeah, pretty much. Like
Yeah.
there's these different corporations. Most of your big corporations kind of merged. Uh, some of them merged together, so you have
Right.
like, I think there's one of them that's like a Chrysler Nissan merged or something like that, and
Mm-hmm.
they actually use like real places and real corporations and stuff that are out there to kind of base a lot of their lore around. So it makes it pretty interesting. But
Yes, but one thing is interesting. They have different races that are not really conventionally, I guess we'd say, are science fiction races. You have a lot of fantasy. You have orcs, dwarves, and at least some other stuff along those lines, as well as dragons, I believe. But dragons are very rare, correct?
I'm not sure about the dragon part, but yeah, you've got orcs, dwarves, pixies, um, of course Sasquatches. I mean, there's a big plethora of different races and
Right.
stuff out there that I think is kind of interesting in itself.
Right. Well, that's what I like about it because it's cyberpunk, which you never like associate that with a fantasy setting, and then you have these very fantasy style races interacting in this cyberpunk world. So that's why I get a kick out of it. Um,
Yeah, like for instance, I think their version of a hacker is a decker,
yeah.
and so you can have like an orc decker that basically, I think what a decker does is they kind of like go in, they kind of there's two different versions. One's a decker, one's something else. One kind of mind melds into the internet,
Mm-hmm.
so he just kind of can jump in and out
Right.
and do things virtually or through his body. And there's another one that utilizes equipment and kind of jacks in, hacks in, can jump
Matrix style.
networks.
Yeah.
Yeah, kind of a situation. So you can get attacked you can get attacked through the cyber world, and it'll affect you in real life. You'll take damage, stuff like that.
Oh.
So it's really interesting. There's a lot of weird things. Like apparently in my campaign,
Mm-hmm.
uh, our bodies um, were hijacked and used by other people as kind of meat suits, and
Interesting.
uh, and they went around committing a bunch of crimes and creating a very bad reputation for us. And then um, once they were done with us, they buried us out in somewhere, and then we woke up with just bald spots where they had hijacked our bodies, and kind of picked up from there. And we went through a battle, and what was actually really fun about this one is it's kind of got a, a Native American theme to it.
I
So
see.
um, like we woke up and all of our equipment was kind of nativized, I guess you could say, or
Yeah.
our armor had like the frilly fringe and feathers and beads and stuff, kind of like what you would see
Right.
a Native American kind of dressed in. Um, so it's we're when helping some group recapture a casino,
Mm-hmm.
but it's going to tie into some other corporation somehow. So it's so far the story's been our dungeon master's done a really good job with story, and it's been pretty interesting. I'm kind of curious to see where it goes.
So it popped up an image on the screen for some, I guess, typical Shadowrun characters. Like it shows like a dwarf, an orc. It looks like to be an elf character, and an orc, or not an orc. Well, there's an orcs, and then there's trolls. Yeah. No, what I was going to ask you is, what class are you? Are you a street samurai or a decker, or are you one of those spell casting types? I forget.
Covert ops.
Covert ops. So would that be under the street samurai, or would that be more? I guess
No, it's its own class.
it's his own class. Well, like I said, may not know all the Shadowrun stuff. Like I said, I just play the PC game, so I'm sure they kind of stripped down the choices for that. But if there is a board or tabletop game I would like to look into, it would be Shadowrun, because I love that universe. It's a very
Yeah,
diverse universe. Hmm?
yeah. I mean, if you ever take a look at their character system, I mean,
Mm-hmm.
it's so vast. I mean, if you give me a second here, I can bring up a list of some things that you can kind of pick from. I think I still
Yeah.
have my little character sheet here. Initiation.
So as for the dragon I'd mentioned earlier, I believe that's in the SNES game, and they also reference it again in the PC games. I guess it's kind of a quasi sequel, but not really. Uh, let's see. I'm trying to find some more Shadowrun style pictures here.
Let's see, qualities.
I'll pop up another one here in just a second. To give folks an idea of the kind of universe we're looking at.
So, I mean, you've got things to choose from, and you'd have to actually reference their material to know what a lot of these are, but
Right.
uh, you've got qualities for, some of the positive ones are stuff like adept in something. Uh, let's see, bilingual, blandness, which means you're just kind of, you don't stand out, which
Mm-hmm.
can be a good trait if you're trying to keep your identity hidden.
Yeah.
Born rich, channeling, cat-like, which in these different qualities give you extra benefits as well. Things like erased, double jointed. Uh, I mean, there's literally a list of like a couple of hundred or so different positive qualities, and then as far as negative qualities, you've got a similar list of things like scales. So you could be a Sasquatch with scales.
Mm-hmm.
Or you really have a lot to choose from that actually affect your gameplay, but can actually stylize your character to however you may want. So,
Yeah.
you could be a street samurai with low pain tolerance. So,
Yeah.
or you could be, you know, an orc with feathers,
Yeah.
or you could be deaf, or
Like many traditional tabletop games, there's a lot more freedom than you would have in a conventional game to create your character and model the universe how you like, right?
yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
it actually gives you a lot of outlets for your creativity. I mean,
Yeah.
the universe of Dungeons and Dragons is really vast, and there's a lot of stuff out there. But yeah, I have limited experience with that too, but from my experience with Shadowruns,
Mm-hmm.
they're they're more story and character driven versus combat, whereas like Dungeons and Dragons and some of your other ones are more combat
Right.
affiliated. So you, I don't know. It really depends on what flavor of tabletop that you really like.
Yeah.
If you would like Shadowruns.
But
Uh,
I said that's pretty interesting. Like I said, I would definitely recommend anyone if you've not tried the PC games, give those a try. If you're looking for a tabletop game, again, Shadowrun. Like I said, I've not had a chance to try out the tabletop, but just from what I know of the universe and like I said, how you build characters and create content, I would say the tabletop game definitely sounds like fun. But that's I guess that's all I got for us tonight. Thanks again for watching Superior Stream episode 16. Like I said, I'll try like to at least get one a month done here. And as I previously mentioned in the previous show, I'll try to put out more content in general, not just the monthly podcast. But I gotta stop being a lazy bastard. But do you want to plug anything or any content you're working on or anything of that nature before we wrap it up?
Um, well, I hate making promises because work keeps me so crazy. It's hard to
Yeah.
do things at times, but I definitely want to try to start making some content myself, some game videos. I usually like to do kind of a combination of just follow along, let's play gameplay type stuff, and then
I gotcha.
also used to do a few um, like gaming music videos and stuff where actually one of that's what we used to do at some of our LAN parties. It was usually a tradition that each LAN party we would do a little music video of various gameplay
Oh,
or
nice.
some gameplay. So if you think about it, actually one of the first ones we did was with Halo,
Yeah.
and it's actually on my YouTube channel.
Well, I want to go ahead and say then go ahead and give us that link. I'll post it in the show notes. Like, so we're running a bit long at the moment, but I definitely want to like to get your content out there. Send me that link, and like I said, I'll plug it in here in a bit.
Yeah,
Or you can do it after the fact, or whenever you're ready. But I
yeah.
think.
I mean, yeah.
Oh, go
Keep
ahead.
in mind, of course, that this is very amateurish, very early day. I think this was actually done playing on that particular video I just linked you was played through one computer, and I used a different computer with a capture card to capture the video. So it was kind of
Interesting.
before it was, unless you spent several $1,000s, your computer wasn't going to be good enough to capture video and game at the same time.
Right. But I'll post that link up here. It's a. I've not seen it yet, but I do want to see it. I'll so I'll have that in our show notes here once we wrap it up. But like I said, I'm not working on anything in particular, but watch my channel and I'll try to put out some more videos. Do you have a Twitch or anything else you want to plug there, Bodok, or are you about done?
No, I do have a Twitch and a YouTube. My content's not really been current, but I'm trying to get back into it after a very long hiatus.
Yeah.
YouTube is just Bodok, Bodok,
Right.
and Twitch is, I believe, Bodok123, so Bodok123, and you can find me either of those places if I have any new content up, which I'm hoping to do something here pretty soon.
That sounds good. Well, I'm gonna get our outro music playing because it's about that time. I'll say thanks again if you've watched or if you're going to watch in the future. Again, we have Mayo here and my co-host for this episode, Bodok. Have a nice night, folks. We're shutting her down. Shutting her down right now.